My second nightmare began with a call from my mother, which is probably not surprising. She tends to be right in the middle of most of the bad things that have happened to me, one way or another. My mother was the one who urged me to forgive Jenny during our engagement when she lied to me about having dinner with her old boyfriend. She loves you, Nikki, and you're lucky to have her. She's a great girl. Don't let that little thing ruin what you have. And even in the middle of my first nightmare, when one would expect a mother to be completely on her son's side in a crisis, she continued to tell me that it was at least partly my fault that Jenny wouldn't have done what she did, for no reason that it cannot be as it seems, and so on. Thank you, Mom. So where did I stop? Ah, yes, my second nightmare. It all started with a call from my mother. The phone rang around 11:15 on Saturday, just as I was walking through the door from karate class. I was drenched in sweat, looking forward to a shower and lunch, but that's not what I got. In response, I received a huge fist on the head. "Hello, Nikki, it's me. How are you, baby?" I sighed. My mom loves to talk. I would stand in the kitchen until the sweat dried on my back. "Hey, Mom, I'm fine. How are you?" She chatted for a few minutes about Naomi Alberson and her hip, about the neighbor's dog that barked at night and kept her awake, about how the taxes on her house were going up. I listened with half an ear, sipping my beer, and waited for her to get down to business. When she did, I regretted that I had even picked up the phone. "Nikki, I wanted to talk to you about Jenny." She waited a second, but I was too stunned to say anything, so she continued. "She called me last night and we talked for a long time. She really wants to see you, baby, but is afraid to call, so she asked for my advice. This time, I found my voice. Well, she should be afraid to talk to me, Mom. I have nothing to say to her, and she can't tell me anything that I would be interested in hearing." "Well, don't be like that, honey. I know she hurt you, but it was a long time ago, and—" "What are you talking about? Offend me? Do you think that one word covers what she did? And that was just recently, 7 months ago. Believe me, I will never forget, no matter how long ago it was. Nikki, don't you dare raise your voice at me." I sighed, moved the phone away from my ear, and waited. I told her she should be brave and just call you. I told her I was sure you would be fair and give her the opportunity to come to you and say what she wants to say. "Okay, Mom, I'll be as fair to her as she is to me." Suddenly, I couldn't take it anymore. "Listen, Mom, I need to finish the conversation. I'll talk to you soon." And I hung up before she could say another word. Jesus Christ on a bicycle, Jenny wanted to see me. How cute, how damn cute. I knew it wasn't over yet. I knew this because I knew my mother and I knew Jenny. Well, I once thought I knew Jenny, but now I wasn't sure I knew her at all. The Jenny I thought I knew, the Jenny I loved with all my heart, was nothing like the one who tore my heart and lungs from my chest and trampled on them while smiling in my face. The next week I received 3 more calls from my mother, all on the same topic, and a letter from Jenny. When I saw her familiar handwriting on the envelope, I winced as if I had swallowed 6 cups of espresso at once. My heart started beating wildly, and I suddenly wanted to punch something. I threw the envelope straight into the trash and went out into the backyard to do some sparring exercises. It took me almost an hour to calm down. A week later, when I returned from work, there was a message on my answering machine from Jenny. Suspecting nothing, I pressed play, getting myself a drink from the refrigerator. When I heard that voice, I was too shocked to move. "Hello, Nick. This is Jenny. I sent you a letter last week. I hope you received it." I hoped that I could... By then, I had already jumped on the phone like it was a rattlesnake and pressed delete. I probably pressed the damn button 6 times, actually poking at it like I was trying to kill someone. Another rush of adrenaline, another pounding heart. Why won't this damn bitch just leave me alone? I ran upstairs, changed clothes, and went to karate. I decided to stop answering the phone and just let the answering machine screen my calls. Over the next 10 days, 3 more messages came from Jenny, as well as 2 more from my mother, and 1 from Jenny's friend Angela, who was her bridesmaid at our wedding. I always liked Angela, but as soon as I heard what she was calling about, I deleted her message too. It was getting out of control. Almost every day when I returned home, I came across an answering machine full of messages that made me nervous and upset. I chose a time when I knew Jenny would be at work and left a message on her answering machine at home. I wrote it in advance, trying to keep it to as few words as possible. "This is Nick. I don't want to see you or hear about you. Don't call, don't write, don't come." Of course, I knew it wouldn't work. 2 days later, my mother left me a message. "How could you be so cruel to Jenny? She called me crying and told me about your message. Don't you have any feelings for her?" Yes, I have feelings for her. I wish I didn't do this, but I do. I want her to fall into quicksand, slowly sink, scream desperately for help, while I sit safely on a rock 10 feet away, holding the rope and smiling as I watch her die. Mom left me another message asking me to come over on Sunday and move some furniture for her. She still lived in the house where she and my father raised me, and it was becoming increasingly difficult for her to manage things on her own. So I moved the couch, 2 chairs, the TV cabinet, and the lamps, while she fed me tuna salad sandwiches and fussed over me while I waited for the other shoe to drop. She never mentioned Jenny, so I knew something was going to happen. And sure enough, while munching on a brownie, I looked out the window and saw a green Jetta Jenny driving up to the house. "Sorry, Mom, I'll be a second," I said, and headed to the bathroom. As Mom walked to the front door to let Jenny in, I quietly slipped out of the kitchen and sat in the car in the driveway. As soon as the front door closed behind them, I started the car and drove away. 2 hours later, I called my mother. When she picked up the phone, I didn't even say hello. I just said, "If you pull that trick again, this will be the last time you'll see me." And I hung up. Davis sat with me in the kitchen and drank beer. Davis has been my closest friend since high school. He was my best man when I married Jenny. He was my constant sparring partner in karate until my first nightmare with Jenny, when I started taking it much more seriously. And he was always the only person in the world I looked up to. I can rely. Actually, I thought I had too, but it turns out I was wrong. His real name is Brandon Edward Davidson, but since junior high, everyone just calls him Davis. I was telling him about how Jenny had been trying to contact me, and the look on his face was hard to describe. Something like a man who has just swallowed 5 or 6 worms. "Lord Nick, what did you say to her?" I told him about my battles with my mother, all the messages I deleted, the ones I left on Jenny's answering machine, and ended with a little dance I had at my mother's house last weekend. I sighed and said, "You see what's happening, right? Jenny will never give up. Short of a restraining order, I don't see any way to keep her away from me. Do you have any idea what she wants?" "Not at all. I just know whatever it is, it can't be good. Every time I hear her voice on the answering machine or see a letter in her handwriting, my blood pressure goes through the roof. I swear I was thinking about quitting my job and moving somewhere else. Yeah, except she'll probably track you down even if you move to Mongolia." "She's a piranha, Nick." We were silent for a long time. Then he said, "Don't be angry, okay? Just listen to me. How about you agreeing to meet her, and when she showed up, I was here with you? I don't want to see her, Davis. I don't want to see her, hear her voice, or even think about her, damn it." "I know, buddy, but you just said she'll never let it go, no matter what it is. Why not just get it over with?" I sighed sadly. "Let me think about it, okay? Perhaps you're right. One unpleasant hour, and maybe I can get rid of her." The following Saturday, I watched from the kitchen window as Jenny sauntered down the path, wearing the yellow sundress that had always been one of my favorites. I couldn't look at her. Hell, I couldn't even think about her without strong and complex feelings. She was absolutely beautiful, still the woman of my dreams. She was small and slender, with light blue eyes and gorgeous blonde silky hair that reached 6 inches below her shoulders. And she had the young, innocent face of an angel, irrefutable proof that God has a seriously sick sense of humor. When the door opened, she said, "Hey, baby, I'm so—" "Davis." She looked very puzzled. "Yes, it's me," Davis said in an unfriendly voice, holding the door for her to enter the house. "I thought Nick might need a little help." He pointed her to a chair in the living room. I took a deep breath and walked out of the kitchen with 3 glasses of water on a tray. This morning, I exercised for an hour and then did 30 minutes of calm breathing. I was going to stay calm even if it killed me. It didn't matter that my heart was already pounding in my chest. "Hi, Jenny," I said quietly, and placed the glass in front of her. She gave me a sparkling smile and said, "I'm so glad to see you again, dear." I said absolutely nothing to this, instead giving her the most aggressively blank face I could muster. "This is your meeting," I thought to myself. "Let's just continue." "Actually, I was hoping we could talk in private, Nick." "I don't think so, Jenny. Davis is a good friend. Whatever you want to say to me, you can say in front of him." She hesitated only a moment, then pulled herself together. "Okay, baby, if that's what you want." I watched as she gave her face an expression that was both serious and pleading. What the hell does she want? "Nick, I understand that I made a terrible mistake. Worst mistake of my life, and I'm very sorry. Baby, I want to go home. I love you, only you, and I want us to be together." I thought I was going to faint, and it took all my energy and karate training to keep a straight face. I felt my heart beating like crazy, and I felt a little dizzy. I didn't move. Across the room, Davis growled, "Are you out of your mind? You're really not right in the head, you know that?" His voice was quiet but icy. "After the nightmare you put Nick through, you think you can just walk into this house and pretend nothing happened?" I didn't move a single muscle. In fact, I wasn't sure I could stand up without falling. I watched Jenny's face. She looked completely shocked by Davis's furious words. Finally, she managed to smile sadly. Apparently, she decided to ignore Davis because she turned straight to me. "I know I did a terrible thing, baby. I really do. You're probably still mad at me and—" "Stop it," I said. "Just stop, Jenny. Don't say another word." I slowly stood up and walked back to the kitchen, leaving a tense silence behind me. I ran cold water into the sink and splashed it on my face and neck, trying to get my thoughts under control. My brain was working feverishly. It must have been a cruel joke. Someone decided that I wasn't enough yet, so they were going to torture me a little more. I really thought I had gotten through the worst of it, but it seems I was wrong. At that moment, I learned something I would rather not know. I thought that when you really hate someone, you don't love them anymore. But I was wrong. I hated Jenny more than anyone in my life. But my heart sang. I heard the birds chirping sweetly in the trees, and my blood boiled with joy. She wanted to come back again. She loved me. To put it mildly, the discovery that I still loved Jenny, I loved her desperately, did not amuse me. This basically confirmed that I was in the middle of my second nightmare. I walked away from the sink, took a few slow, deep breaths, and walked back into the living room. Jenny and Davis sat in tense silence. They both looked at me. "Jenny, it's time for you to go." I said this quietly, trying not to show the trembling in my voice. "Baby, right now. You have to leave right now. You said what you wanted. I don't want to see you or hear about you anymore. I don't see how I can express it more clearly than this." I watched as Jenny's face blurred and she began to cry. "Honey, I know I screwed up, but I really thought we were—" Her voice trailed off into sobs. I absolutely, positively could not stand it a moment longer. I turned away and, without turning around, said, "Davis, can you help Jenny get to the car?" "Of course, Guy." Without another word, I headed toward the stairs. I slowly went up to my bedroom, hearing Jenny's voice behind me, desperately screaming, "Nick, darling, please." I sat on the bed, feeling numb, and listened to the front door close. Then I waited for Jenny's car to drive away. Finally, it happened, and I trudged downstairs and collapsed on the sofa. Davis returned and sat down in the chair opposite me. Jesus Christ, on the back of a camel. He shook his head in surprise. "She just doesn't know anything, does she? After everything He looked at me and saw tears on my face. "Davis, I'm in complete shit." "What do you mean, Guy?" "I want to say that I love her. I love her madly. I want her to come back. Can you believe it? I still want her back." I couldn't stand it and started crying. The only time in my life I cried in front of another man. Even at my father's funeral, I managed to control myself until I was left alone. I'm sure Davis was embarrassed, but he was a true friend. He sat down next to me and put his hand on my shoulder, squeezing it tightly, and just held it there while I cried like a baby, like a damn child. I just realized I was telling you about my second nightmare. How about the first one, right? I mean, you were probably thinking, what the hell did she do with this guy? So I guess I'll tell you about my first nightmare. Not that it was fun. In one famous book, there is a story about a rich guy who was asked how he went bankrupt. He answered, gradually, and then suddenly. That's exactly how my first nightmare happened to me. Only I didn't know too much about what was happening gradually. Mostly this happened behind my back. I had several girlfriends before meeting Jenny, but she surpassed them all. She was gorgeous, funny, attentive, affectionate, honest, so I thought. And in love with me. In love with me. I felt like I had won the lottery. I mean, this girl should be with Derek Jeter, not the girl who would fall in love with your average 24-year-old electrical engineer in Dayton, Ohio. We dated for almost 2 years before I got the courage to ask her to marry me. Even then, even after we slept together for over a year, spending almost every night together at her or mine, I was scared to death that she would say no. But she didn't. She squealed, grabbed the ring and put it on her finger, and then kissed and hugged me deeply in the middle of the restaurant. People actually applauded. We packed a whole church, a white wedding dress, dropped off a bouquet, honeymooned in Maui, and then settled into a cute little 3-bedroom house and lived happily ever after. Well, scratch it out forever. Maybe replace it with about 4 years. It wasn't perfect, don't get me wrong. First of all, Jenny loved to party. She loved to dance. In general, she liked to go out and have fun much more than I did. One night at a club every 2 weeks was enough for me, while she preferred a couple of times a week. But we compromised. Sometimes we did as she wanted, and we went to a club, usually with a couple of her friends. Sometimes they did as I wanted, and we rented a video and stayed at home. The great thing was that both nights ended with us making love. Making love to her was amazing, sometimes loving and tender, sometimes energetic and hot. I've never been with a woman who gave herself so completely to me, who felt so open and complete the moment we did it. Our other problem is that I couldn't stop thinking that she was too good for me. How did I get into this film? I thought. A guy like me won't get a girl like her in real life. Kevin James would only marry Angelina Jolie in some stupid romantic comedy. Not that I'm like him, but you know what I mean. But she loved me and showed it all the time. And gradually my worries faded into the background. Whoever God wants to fuck, as they say, will first ease his worries. Or if it's not a proverb, it should be. It started gradually, about 4 months before suddenly. Of course, I didn't know anything about it at the time. In fact, most of what I'm about to tell you is something I pieced together later. While this was happening, I didn't suspect anything like the brainless husband cliché. When we went to clubs, Jenny almost always danced with other guys. Sometimes I danced with other women, but mostly I was happy to drink beer and watch her. I wasn't as much of a dance fan as she was. Jenny was so beautiful and so hot on the dance floor that there were always guys wanting to dance with her. There was a really cute guy there one night who danced with her 3-4 times, but I never would have thought anything of it if it wasn't for what happened later. The rest of the evening was completely normal, including Jenny slowly dancing with me a couple of times and hugging me as close as she could. We went home and had fantastic sex that night, as we often did after nights out. Well, turns out this guy is Alec. And doesn't the name itself tell you what an asshole he is? Most guys named Alexander are called Alex, or I think Sandy. But not this jerk. He should be Alec. Like, I'm so special. Normal nicknames don't suit me. So this guy, Alec, thinks Jenny is super hot, which she is, and doesn't care at all that she's married, so he asks her friend what her last name is and where she works. And then he's going to get into her pants. The guy was an actor. Nothing special, but for Dayton, I think he did a few TV commercials in Chicago and some theater productions, and he had a very flexible schedule. So he checked out the office building where Jenny works, found out where the people who work there go to eat, kept an eye on Jenny, and managed to bump into her about a week after he danced with her at a club. He played very cool. "Oh, hi, how are you?" "What a nice surprise. Remember, I'm Alec. We danced in the Mercedes last week, etc." So Jenny invites him to hang out with her and her friends, and he makes up some nonsense about why he often eats in the area. That's where it all started, and I'm sure you can guess a lot of the rest. The only real question is how hard or easy it was for him to pin her down, and I don't know the answer to that question. If it was difficult, if she started all this while still trying to be a faithful wife, then I'm sure he did it very slowly and carefully. Random coincidences, then a random dinner invitation, then another one a couple of weeks later, and so on. If only it was easy, if Jenny was giving off approachable vibes, and who the hell knows at this point? I don't know, of course. He probably moved faster then, suggesting lunch in a public place, then probably somewhere more private, maybe a picnic in a secluded part of the park, maybe lunch in the hotel restaurant, with comfortable rooms right upstairs. Anyway, he got into her pants. In 3 weeks or 10? I have no idea. But the result was the same. But I bet what happened next took Alec by surprise. Jenny fell in love with him. Or she wondered who the hell actually knew what was going on in her head. I once thought so. In any case, I have no doubt that Alec was only thinking about getting the extremely attractive lady he met at the club. And since Jenny is amazing in bed, it is not surprising that once was not enough and he continued to date her. But for Jenny, they became soulmates, hearts and flowers, we are meant to be together, kisses in the moonlight. In fact, it might have been that way for her even before she first jumped into bed with him. I don't think Jenny is the type to have a cold-blooded affair just because a guy has turned her on and she wants a new experience in bed. Although I guess the last few months have shown me how little I knew my wife, so why should you believe anything I say? If anything, they say that for women, it is rare that sexual attraction itself can lead them to cheat. And I suspect that Jenny actually fell for his tricks and decided that she really loved him before she let him get that far. So things got serious and emotional, and Jenny got really into it. I don't know what Alec really told her. I have no idea if he thought he loved her too, but either way, he didn't push her away or slow her down. She began seeing him more and more often, arranging long lunches or doctor's appointments during office hours so they could spend time together. Only for her it was not ballet, it was sexual intercourse with the love of her life. And they must have made plans together. When she would tell me when she would move in with him, all the financial arrangements, everything. This was part of it gradually. I never knew anything, and even looking back, there was little I could understand. Jenny was sweet and affectionate at home. We still went out almost as often as before. She made sure Alex stayed away from her during our nightly walks. We still made love more or less often, as in always. One evening I came home to dinner and Jenny was crying. I saw it in her face. Of course I was worried. Asked her about it and tried to console her. All she told me was that a friend at work was very sick. She was vague about it and I didn't press her. It was only after the roof fell on my head that I thought about it again. Jenny probably planned what she was going to do and felt guilty about what it might do to me. At least I'd like to think she felt a little guilty, so it was gradually, it suddenly came in a typical way, for the most part. I had a 2-day training session in Cleveland, which is almost 4 hours away, so I planned to stay overnight. And then the first day's session was canceled. And since I wasn't due back in Cleveland until 10 a.m. the next day, I decided to surprise Jenny and go home for the night. It was a long drive, but I really love my wife. I bought a beautiful bouquet in Cleveland and hit the road around 6:30, arriving at my house around 10:15. There was a car parked in front of the house, but there were cars parked up and down our street. There was nothing unusual about that. Again, most of what I'm telling you is what I remembered later as I replayed it over and over again, obsessed, unable to get it out of my head, and I remembered all sorts of details that I was too overwhelmed to see at that time. I entered the house and immediately went up the stairs to our bedroom. The door was wide open, and after taking 2 steps, I stopped dead in my tracks. The room was softly lit by a couple of candles on the nightstand. Naked, Alec and Jenny were dozing in our bed. He leaned against the pillows on my side, and she lay with her head on his chest and her arms around him. The room smelled of candles and sex. I never found out if they were between rounds or finished for the night, but it doesn't really matter, does it? I'm not very quick to think in situations like this. I tend to freeze or move slowly and carefully, rather than go crazy. The madness comes later. So, to my eternal shame, I didn't drag him out of bed and kick him in the balls. I didn't even scream. I dropped the flowers and said, "What the hell is this?" in a quiet, stunned voice. Well, their eyes flew open and they looked at me in fear. As for what happened after that first moment, I replayed that movie over and over again in my head 1,000,000 times. A smug grin appeared on Alec's face. What a deceived husband, poor fool. But I was not looking at him, but at Jenny. And after that first shocked moment when she grabbed the sheet and pulled it up to cover her breasts, from me, her husband, what I saw on her face was a soft, sympathetic look, almost with pity. She said, "Nick, I didn't want anyone to find out about it like that. Notice what she didn't say. Now I'm so sorry, or it doesn't mean anything, or he doesn't mean anything, or please forgive me, or I love you, or it was just sex." No, she just said this phrase to me, looking so calm and so sorry. And then, without the slightest sign of fear or embarrassment, she turned to the asshole and said, "I'll talk to you tomorrow." And she smiled at him. And Alec gets out of bed, still grinning, takes his clothes and calmly leaves the room and goes down the stairs. What am I doing? I'm still standing in the middle of the room, frozen, shocked, motionless, like Wild Coyote running off a cliff and not yet noticing that he's 500 feet up and about to plummet to the bottom of the canyon. Neither Jenny nor I moved until we heard the front door open and close. Then she said, still calm and benevolent, "We need to talk, dear. Let me take a quick shower and we can talk downstairs, okay?" And she got out of bed, pulling the sheet over herself. Why? Because I wasn't supposed to see her naked anymore after 4 years of marriage? I don't have the slightest idea. And she walked straight out of the room and into the bathroom, closing the door behind her. A moment later, I heard the sound of a shower running. There were a lot of things I could have done back then, and you might think I was a complete idiot for not doing any of them. I could go into the shower and beat the crap out of her, or throw all her clothes out of the bedroom window, or set the house on fire with her in it. Or I could get in the car and drive back to Cleveland, or just drive to a bar, or to Davis's house, and get drunk as hell. But at the moment I was only thinking about going back to Cleveland, and I realized that if I did this, I wouldn't see Jenny for another 24 years. As stunned as I was, I needed to know what the hell was going on. I mean, I knew what the hell was going on. I caught my wife and her lover in my bed. But I needed to know what it meant. Yes, I know, but besides the obvious, I needed to know the rest. How long? Why? Who else? What's next? I'm not angry yet. It just didn't fit in my head. That day I learned that you can actually see something with your own eyes and still not believe it, at least at first. So I went downstairs, sat at the kitchen table, stared at the wall, and didn't think about anything. For 20 minutes. I don't think I had a single coherent thought until Jenny walked into the room, beautiful, fresh from her shower, wrapped in a yellow terry robe, her hair damp and shiny. If I weren't still so overwhelmed, I would have started crying, screaming, and possibly throwing things. Instead, we sat and had the most surreal conversation of my life. "Nick, I'm so sorry you had to see that. I didn't expect you home until tomorrow, baby." "What's happened?" "Does it matter? They canceled today's session, and I wanted to surprise you." "A pleasant surprise?" I pointed to the flowers I had brought her, which lay lonely on the kitchen table. She looked down for a minute, then back at me. "I never expected it to happen like this. I was going to talk to you about this tomorrow evening when you get back from your trip." "Talk about what? About the fact that you now have a lover on the side? And you wanted to keep me informed? That's very kind of you, Jenny." She winced and shook her head. "No, Nick, it's not like that at all. Nothing like this." She looked at me intently, and even reached across the table to take my hand. She took my hand. Even now, I can't believe it. "Nick, I never expected something like this to happen. You have to believe me. Alec and I love each other, truly in love, and he is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. I'm really sorry." "What?" I looked at her blankly. "Are you in love with someone else?" What the hell are you talking about? I didn't want this to happen. I swear to you, baby. But he is everything I ever wanted in a man. She must have seen the shock and pain on my face and hurried on. Oh, honey, don't take it that way. You were so wonderful to me, so persistent, loyal, and loving. But our life together is so, well, ordinary. You are strong and reliable. But with Alec, it's magical. It's exciting, wild, and unpredictable. Every moment feels like a roller coaster ride. I have never felt anything like this in my life before. Nick, I have to be with him. I'm really sorry. I was going to tell you about it tomorrow night and move out on Saturday. I think I should move everything up a day. Jenny, me. Lord, I can't believe it. How did it happen? How long have you been having this affair? Nick, it's not like that at all. She spoke sharply, then relaxed again. We first met in Mercedes about 4 months ago. We just danced a few times, nothing more. And then we bumped into each other a couple of times at lunch, and after that we started having lunch together. And it was incredible. We have so much in common, as if we were destined to be together forever, from birth. We just haven't found each other yet. I stared at her, desperately trying to collect my thoughts. I must have had an IQ of about 72 back then. And you tell me, are you saying that you are leaving me for him? She nodded, still holding my hand. Yeah, baby. I'm really sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Then her face got that damn excited expression again. I want to slap her every time I think about it, and she said, but it's just what's supposed to happen, Alec and me. After that, we sat in silence for some time. She probably looked at me with sympathy. Poor baby, I know I hurt him, and I was in some kind of comatose state. What just happened to me was so incredible that even in my dreams, I could not imagine that I was numb and stupefied. And the vows we took? You know, love and honor and cherish and leave everyone else and all that? Are you just joking? Are you crossing your fingers? A pained but patient expression appeared on her face, like a mother talking to a difficult child. Nick, I was serious, you know. I thought that we would be together all our lives. It's as much of a shock to me as it is to you. I didn't plan this. I didn't want this. It just happened. And if it makes any difference, I'm very, very sorry. Actually, yes. It's so unfair to you, I know. Silence again. I still felt numb, like I couldn't see or hear well, like my head was stuffed with cotton. A few minutes later, I suddenly stood up and poured myself a glass of water. Still facing the sink and not looking at her, I said, I want you and your things out of here by the time I get back tomorrow. I suddenly, desperately, even madly, wanted to be away from the house, away from her eyes. I guess I realized that I was about to lose her. I vaguely heard her say, "Okay, honey," and ran out the door without looking back. I only made it 4 blocks before tears started pouring out of my eyes, and I had to stop. I cried, sobbed, pounded the dashboard with my fists, kicked the floor, and generally looked like a 6-year-old child who had fallen into hysterics. This went on for about 10 minutes, with anger, pain, and sadness mixed together. And when it subsided, I wiped my face, started the car, and drove straight to Cleveland, which, amazingly enough, I managed to get there without hitting anyone or anything along the way. It was after 2:30 a.m. when I got there. I fell straight into bed and managed to fall asleep. Then I slept the entire next day and drove slowly back to Dayton. There's no point in rushing. Her clothes were gone, her cosmetics, her purses, etc. And she took some of our CDs, but not too many, and no furniture or stereo equipment. I assume she was moving in with Alec, although she didn't say so. And not a single photograph. Not one of the many photographs of us, wedding photographs, honeymoon photographs, and candid photographs of us and our families that were displayed throughout the house. I don't know why she was worried, but she left me a note. 1 sentence, not even worth the time to write. Nick, I'm so sorry. I will always remember you. Jenny. So this was my first nightmare. Enough details for you? I hope so, because there is not much else that I can tell you about. With the exception of some consequences, I think you might be interested in this too. My anger grew slowly and tentatively as the shock wore off. It became a little more real for me that my beloved wife, the love of my life, left me, fell in love with someone else, and went to him. From the first night, I knew that I would never be able to sleep in our bedroom again after what I had seen. Without even looking around, I moved all my clothes and belongings into the guest bedroom. The double bed there would be big enough for me. It wasn't until Sunday afternoon that I returned to the master bedroom and looked around. In my mind's eye, I still saw them both naked in bed, with the pillows propped up against the headboard. I saw candles on the nightstand and smelled sex in the air. All this, of course, disappeared. Jenny changed the sheets, made the bed, put away the candles, and everything was as if nothing had happened. And at that moment, I went a little crazy. I'm not too proud of what I did next, although I think that's part of how I dealt with it. The clean, untouched appearance of the bedroom infuriated me. I wanted to see it again the way it was. I started to get really angry and started to cry. I took out the candles, put them on the night table, and lit them. And I opened the bed, pulled off the top sheet, and put the pillows as they were. I simply blew out the candles, left the room, and closed the door behind me. That's how I created my shrine in honor of my unfaithful wife, a bitch. But after 2-3 weeks, the fun left the project, or the madness left me, I don't know. And for more than 5 months, I have never opened the door or entered the room. How else did I survive the first few weeks? I went to work. I didn't tell anyone what happened except Davis. He came over on a Saturday afternoon and I sat him down with a beer and told him the whole story, every word I could remember. He looked at me in shock, in absolute amazement. All he said was, "Jesus Christ," several times, shaking his head. And when I finished, he just continued to sit there and shake his head. "This bitch," he finally said slowly. "And she thinks she's in love with this idiot?" That's what she says. He is the love of her life, the one she's been waiting for all her life, even if she didn't know it before. While I don't know, Mr. Slow and Steady, the reliable but boring one she only thought she loved. We sat a little longer and he said, "I wanted to ask you what you were going to do, but it's too early for that. How about hitting some golf balls?" And that's how Davis helped me get through it. We hit golf balls. We watched football on TV. We drank beer, although, oddly enough, I never got drunk and didn't want to. We had a lot of long conversations in the first few weeks about Jenny and me and what I wanted to do now. Sometimes we talked about him and Kathleen, the woman he sometimes dated. I decided to keep the house. I could take out a mortgage on my salary, and I didn't want to move. But I decided not to file for divorce. To hell with it. If she wants to marry this jerk, she can apply and pay the lawyer's bills. It wasn't a big deal to me anyway. I canceled all my credit cards and got a couple of new ones. Talking to Davis also helped me realize that I needed to do something. I needed to find ways not to sit at home alone, staring at the walls. I did karate for years, once or twice a week, and worked my way up to brown belt. But it was just tomfoolery. Now I took it seriously. I started going to 4 to 5 classes a week and doing extra sparring in the backyard. Karate was perfect. It forced me to focus and be disciplined, to concentrate on what I was doing and nothing else. 90-minute classes turned into OSAs without the thought of Jenny, well, after a while anyway. And, needless to say, what a great outlet for my anger. To punch, kick, hit my opponent, or even into the void. I probably don't have to tell you how many times I imagined Alex's grinning face on the receiving end of my punches. And when I got to the 4th level of black belt, there are 12 levels, but almost no one gets to the very top, I started breaking the boards with my hand. It was very nice. So now you know what I know. And for me, that was more than enough to make me miserable, but not enough to really understand it. I mean, how does a woman who is happily married fall in love with another man? I know it's happening, but how is it happening? Jenny wasn't unhappy with me, and I still don't believe it wasn't me she was looking for. But that damn Alec put his foot in the door, and then he played with her. and somehow he made her believe that they were soulmates destined to be together, like Romeo and Juliet, Tristan and Isolde, Hero and Leander. I read a lot of books in college. Maybe Bonnie and Clyde. I watched a lot of movies, too. Now 8 months had passed, and I was starting to feel like the worst was over, and I could start thinking about a new life without Jenny. And now she says she wants to get back with me? I really hoped that after the day Jenny arrived, everything would be over. I listened to what she wanted and gave her my answer. I, of course, didn't let her spill all her chatter. But less than a week had passed before my mother started taking care of me again. By this time, I never picked up the phone, so it was just texts. "She's sorry for what she did, Nick. She's truly sorry. You should have heard how she talks about you. You should give her another chance." That was the essence, although my mother found different ways to express it. I called her on Saturday morning, just before I left for karate, so she couldn't keep me on the phone. "Mom, it's me. Please listen to me, okay? I have I repeat, no intention of dating Jenny again. Everything is over. Thinking about her, talking about her, seeing her makes me feel even worse. You are my mother and should be on my side, right? So please don't mention Jenny again." There was a long silence. Then she said in an offended voice, "Well, of course, I'm on your side, Nick. Jenny is just so... We have to go, Mom. Goodbye." I interrupted her to say these words and hung up. My mom will never get this. The next week was good, mainly because of karate. I was training for an amateur tournament in Columbus, so I stayed after class every night for an extra hour of studying, and my teacher almost wore me out. I'd go home, feeling exhausted but great, eat dinner, watch the Davis game or read, and go to bed. Then, on Saturday, when I returned home from karate around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Jenny's friend Angela was sitting on my porch. For a moment, I considered driving straight past the house, and then I thought, damn it, I can't keep dodging people. She smiled sweetly at me as I approached her and said, "Hey, Nick, can you buy the girl a beer?" "Sure, Angie, if you don't mind being next to a sweaty guy while you drink it." "I think I can handle it," she said with another smile. We went inside and drank beer, chatting about nothing in particular. Like I said, I've always liked Angela. She was a short, curvy brunette, the complete opposite of Jenny, but like Jenny, outgoing and cheerful. Early on in our marriage, Jenny and I hoped that maybe Angie and Davis would get together because we liked them a lot, but they weren't really right for each other. They teased each other in a friendly manner, but never met. Either way, I didn't mind Angela being there. She was funny and a joy to watch. But I couldn't help but wait for the other shoe to drop. There was no way this sudden visit was about nothing but Jenny. When we finished our beer, I said something about this. "As nice as it is to see you, Angie, there must be some reason for you to stop by." "Care to tell me what it is?" She blushed and lowered her eyes for a minute. "You might think it's because of Jenny, Nick, but it's really not. You know I like you too. I always thought I was friends with you too, not just with Jenny. I missed you too. When she left, I probably felt like I should stay away, out of loyalty to her or something. Now she was looking straight at me. But in the end, I thought, screw it. Nick is my friend too. Why the hell can't I go to him? And here I am." I looked at her suspiciously. "So it's really not because of Jenny? You're not trying to figure out how to get her back, are you?" Angela looked a little worried, but held my gaze and said, "I was just hoping that we could spend time together, you know, as we are used to. I won't say that I believed her. I'm just not that gullible, you know. Maybe there was once, but not since nightmare number 1. But I didn't insist." "Okay, Angie, how about I take a quick shower and then we can go have lunch?" And that was the start of some really strange but really enjoyable weeks. The next week, Angela came twice more, and the following weekend we went to the movies and to dinner. True to her word, she didn't mention Jenny at all, didn't pry into my feelings or my current love life, which, of course, didn't exist. Instead, we acted almost like buddies, much like me and Davis, I think, except Angie was prettier and smelled a lot better. Angie loved baseball. So we watched a few games on TV, and at her request, I showed her some of the fancy karate moves I was learning. I told her about the upcoming tournament and random things at my job, and she seemed very interested. We talked about other things, such as Angie's work and her family life. We just got to know each other better, and I gradually became a little less suspicious. No, that's not true. Let me try again. I no longer suspected that Angie would come to me to persuade me to get back together with Jenny, but at the same time, I became more suspicious. I mean, if she didn't do it, then what did she do? I loved being with Angie, but why did she spend so much time around me? And everything was complicated by the fact that she was beautiful and sexy. She looked good and smelled good, and she really enjoyed my company. I'm only human, and I haven't been with a woman in almost 10 months. I began to realize that the feelings I had for her were much more than friendship, but I did not know whether they were purely lust or something more complex. Before I could figure out what I was feeling and what to do about it, everything came to mind in a way I didn't expect. Angie invited me to dinner Friday night at her house, and I assumed it would be casual, as we had done several times before. But when I got there was a tablecloth with candles on her kitchen table. The lights were dim, and Angie herself was amazing. No jeans or sweatshirt. She was wearing a short black skirt, tights, and a pale blue sweater that hugged her and really showed off her cleavage. Her hair was loose over her shoulders. "Oh my God, Angie, you look amazing! Are we going to some fancy party you forgot to mention? If so, then you'll have to fight off guys with a stick." She blushed and looked very pleased, but all she said was, "I just wanted to dress up a little tonight, that's all." At first, I felt uneasy. I was sure that something was going on, and I had a hard time believing that the most obvious conclusion, Angela was going to seduce me, was actually the right one. We talked nervously for a few minutes, but then we calmed down, had dinner, and enjoyed each other's company. Usually, she and I preferred beer, but today she brought a bottle of red wine. It wasn't anything with a screw cap, but one of those $50 bottles of Chateau Leblanc that the guys at the liquor store are always trying to get you to buy. It tasted great, but I'm far from an expert. We were washing the dishes together, as we always do when we eat dinner, and I noticed that Angie was standing awfully close and managed to lightly touch my thigh, pretending that nothing was happening. Then she led me into the living room, turned on the music, and sat me down on the sofa. I knew I had to say something, so I just went ahead. "Angela, I'm having a great time, but I need to know what's going on, okay? We've been talking for a few weeks now, but it's like this." She stopped me by placing a finger on my lips. "Don't talk, okay, Nick? Just shut up. I've waited a long time to do this." I watched her carefully, with some surprise. She looked nervous, but determined, as she leaned in and kissed me tenderly. The kiss was amazing, and I was in no hurry to interrupt it. When she pulled away, she smiled shyly at me and then kissed me again. This time, it didn't take long before her arms wrapped around me tightly, and we embraced passionately. Like I said, Angie is beautifully built, and like I said, I haven't slept with anyone in a very long time. And as I said, I felt more and more tenderness and lust towards her, and like I said, she was wearing a sexy outfit, and like I said, we just had a romantic candlelit dinner and lots of wine. And like I said, she hugged me pretty hard. So don't bullshit me, okay? I had a beautiful girl in my hands, ready for anything, and I went for it. I hugged her, kissed her, stroked her back, and said in a quiet voice how beautiful she was, and then ran my hand over her chest. As I was caressing her, she moaned and moved closer to me, so I assumed everything was okay. A few minutes later, I was almost laying on the couch with Angie on top of me, and the foreplay continued beautifully. I carefully slid my hand under her skirt and had fun stroking her ass. Angie found it difficult to breathe between kisses. Honestly, I can't say I didn't even think about Jenny. I knew all too well that the only other woman I had been with for so many years was Jenny, and even my pleasure and excitement with Angie had not driven my unfaithful wife completely from my thoughts. But, on the other hand, thoughts about Jenny didn't bother me either. I was very focused on Angie and how much fun we were giving each other, and I was looking forward to what seemed like obvious next steps. There seemed to be only two questions: here, on the sofa, or in the bedroom. Imagine my surprise when Angie suddenly pulled away from me and looked at me sadly, tears filling her eyes. Before I could say a word, she jumped to her feet, stood over me and said, "Nick, I'm so sorry. I can't do this." Confused, wondering if I had missed some sign of trouble, I stood up and walked over to hug her tenderly, trying to start something to say. "No," she exclaimed, retreating from me. "No, Nick, it's not you. It's not what you did. It's just me. I never meant—" She fell silent and began to cry. Looking at me through her tears, she said, "Could you just leave, please? I am so sorry." And she cried even harder, covering her face with her hands, just standing in the middle of the living room. I tried to hug her again, if only to calm her down, but she shook her head furiously and ran into the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Confused, I just waited a few minutes. When she didn't come out, I went to the door and knocked softly. Her timid voice came from behind the door. "Yes, Nick, I'm sorry." "It's all my fault." Completely confused, I took my coat and headed home. Davis sat with me in the living room. "I don't know, old man," he said. "It's not very clear to me either." "She didn't give you any explanation?" I shook my head. "All I can think about is that we're in too much of a hurry, or that she feels some kind of damn loyalty to Jenny. But what really drives me crazy is that she won't talk to me about it. This week I probably left her 10 messages. Very gentle, unobtrusive, you know. But she never called me back. Damn it, Davis, I don't deserve this." He smiled at me, raising an eyebrow. No one deserves this. And you especially don't deserve this. You deserve a parade of women, all of whom are hot for you, and none of which can be understood." I snorted. "I've never met one of them, let alone a parade." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing yet," I answered. "I have a tournament at the end of next week, and I don't want to make a complete fool of myself. When I get back, maybe I can get Angie to talk to me and find out what the hell is going on. I won 5 out of 8 fights and finished 9th in my division. Besides being completely exhausted, I felt pretty good when I got back from Columbus. I had a busy weekend where I did nothing but eat, sleep, and do karate, and it was great. I hardly thought about Angela and even less about Jenny. More than ever since my wife left me, I felt that perhaps there was a chance that I would survive this nightmare and be able to rebuild my life." "That's great, buddy." Davis congratulated me when I called him. "And think what a weakling you were just a few months ago. Even I could beat you." "Yes, in about 2 cases out of 10. Anytime you want to try again, buddy, just let me know." "No way, buddy, now that you have a powerful black belt, you'll make fire out of me." "But I can still outsmart you." We exchanged a few more friendly jokes before hanging up, and I thanked the gods once again for allowing me to have such an amazing friend. Especially last year. A couple of days later, I decided to go to Angela after work and persuade her to meet with me. She ended up doing this to me, and I got tired of leaving phone messages that were never returned. I rang the doorbell of her apartment and waited. A moment later, I heard her footsteps approaching, and then she must have looked through the peephole. Sorry, Nick, I don't see you." Her voice sounded a little muffled from behind the door. "Well, Angie, looks like I'm in for a long night. I brought a folding chair with me, and I will sit here in the hall until you give me permission to come in and talk to you. If you pass by me in the morning, I will be here again tomorrow when you return from work. You'll have to get used to seeing me every day." There was a long pause, a very long pause, and then I heard the chain being removed and her opening the door. She was wearing jeans and a black AC/DC t-shirt. She was barefoot and must have just washed off her makeup. She looked like she was about to cry. She looked absolutely beautiful. I realized that I had not seen her for almost a month, and my heart began to pound. "How about this?" I thought. "My heart is racing, and this is not for Jenny. Angie, you need to talk to me. I don't know what happened, what I did to scare you away, but please give me another chance. You are very important to me. Can you imagine what it's like to leave me after everything that happened? What happened to me and Jenny? I'm so sorry, Nick. I guess I didn't think about it." Come in and bring this stupid chair, she added with a slight smile. She brought us a couple of sodas and we sat in her living room, me on the couch and her on the chair opposite me. All I ask, Ange, is that you tell me what went wrong. Was it me? Have I caused you any pain? She shook her head vigorously. No, nothing like that. It was never you, Nick. Nothing like what you did. You were... I always felt good with you. She leaned forward. What I have to tell you is a long story, okay? And it will be difficult for me to say. Therefore, you must promise that you will listen to everything to the end and will not get angry. I've never seen her so serious. I promise, Angie, although I can see from your face that I won't like it. No, that's not true. She looked out the window for a while and then turned back to me. Nick, Jenny is in the middle of it all, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you want to know the truth, you will have to hear about it too. I won't pretend that I was happy. In fact, I felt my stomach drop, but I just nodded and waited for her to continue. And what followed, God knows, was another incarnation of nightmare number 1, as if I hadn't suffered enough already, going through all this. Angela told me about Jenny's fucking affair with that idiot Alec. Only she didn't call it an affair, of course. She explained that Jenny really fell in love with this guy, like I told you. She really thought he was right for her and that they would live happily ever after. Only it seems everything turned out completely wrong. At first, being with Alec seemed much more exciting than living with me. He was a handsome actor, loved to dance, have fun, and stay up late, and life was a crazy fun whirlpool. It's hard for any couple's routine to compete with that. But Alec was a complete idiot. He was hypertrophied, emotional, and rather unbalanced. He couldn't stick to any kind of routine, couldn't be where he said he would be half the time, and in his wild mood, swings began to insult Jenny. According to Angela, at first it wasn't that bad. He just screamed from time to time, although sometimes he got so worked up that Jenny hid in the bathroom behind the locked door. But after a few months, their fights became so intense that he even hit her a couple of times, and Jenny came to Angela's apartment to spend the night, scared half to death. Jenny finally began to realize that she had fallen in love with a fantasy, that married life had become a little boring, and that she attributed the dullness of the routine to me, not seeing that no marriage could compete with the excitement of something new. She finally realized what a terrible mistake she had made in thinking she could find magic with a petty, immature asshole like Alec. It was clear from the very beginning, I interrupted bitterly. I sat quietly, listening to the story, just as I had promised Angie, but it was getting harder and harder. I was almost ready to rush to the door. Angie saw this and quietly said, "Nick, you promised." I nodded and tried to relax. She should finish soon, I told myself. Anyway, Jenny moved out of Alec's house and rented her own apartment, and that's when she started talking to my mother and trying to contact me again. I knew the rest of the story, or at least I thought I knew. But no, of course there was something else that could ruin everything even more. How could I have thought that things would be different? Angie sat down next to me and took my hand. Nick, please don't be angry with me. I may be the worst person in the world, but I did what I did because I care about Jenny and about you. I looked at her with concern. What now? After Jenny broke up with Alex, she was determined to get you back. She just knew that if you gave her a chance to talk to you, she could make you understand how much she loved you, that she would do anything to make amends. When you told her to leave on the day she finally met you, she was completely devastated. She cried for weeks. I was very afraid that she would do something to herself. I almost thought it was a shame she didn't do that. But I realized that Jenny's suicide would be the final knife in my back, feeling guilty all my life, even though it was her fault. So I was glad that she at least spared me the horror. She kept thinking that there must be a way to make you understand so that you will give her another chance. We talked about this for hours. I just listened patiently as she repeated it over and over again. And then she came up with this idea. Angie squeezed my hand tighter. Nick, you have to promise me you won't explode, okay? I nodded, gritting my teeth and waiting for what would happen next. Jenny thought that if you also had an affair, it would be easier for you to forgive her for what she did. But she knew from your mom that you weren't dating at all. And then one night she came to me and asked, no, begged me to seduce you. I let go of Angela's hand and jumped to my feet, staring at her. So that's what it's all about. All these weeks hanging out, being buddies, having a good time, and then a tight sweater, candles, a bottle of wine. No, Nick, please let me finish. Old Nick wasn't fooled, not fooled enough, so let's do it to him again, right? By then I was almost screaming. Nick, listen! Angie shouted to me with tears in her eyes. But you promised. I was furious. But I closed my mouth and sat in a chair as far away from her as possible. And I waited for her to continue. I told her it was a terrible idea. It was unfair to you to take advantage of your misfortune. Not to mention that she asked me to become a seductress. And I hated the very thought of lying to you or playing some kind of game. You are my friend. And I told her it would never, ever work. But she begged me. Nick, she begged me. She fell to her knees in front of me, cried, and said that this was her only chance to get you back, that I was her best friend and should help her, that she had no one else to turn to. And Nick, I knew how much you loved her, or at least how much you loved her before. You were always so crazy about her and so kind to her, and I thought maybe it would be useful for you to find a way to get her back. So I told her I'd try. I'd like to drop by and chat a little and see what happens, but I didn't promise her anything. Angie's voice became very quiet. Part of the problem was that I was so attracted to you. You know, I never thought about you like that. From the day we met, you were Jenny's boyfriend and we've always been great friends. But now that you were apart, I couldn't help but think about what it would be like. So I came to you and we started hanging out and, well, Nick, we had a great time together, isn't it? And nothing romantic happened. And I kept telling myself, I'm doing this for Jenny, but I have to take it slow, lay the groundwork, and not rush. I didn't want to ruin everything. But the truth was that I fell in love with you. She spoke even more quietly. I just liked being around you. These casual dinners, or watching TV together, or whatever we did, I was so happy, Nick, and I didn't know what to do except that I wanted it to continue. But Jenny became more and more impatient, asking when I was going to put you to bed. And I felt so guilty. I felt guilty because I wasn't honest with you, and I wasn't honest with her either. The worst part is, if we slept together, would you really go back to Jenny? I didn't think so, but I had to face the fact that I didn't want this to happen. She looked at me pleadingly. And there I was, Jenny pushing me to seduce you. And there I was, desperately wanting you, but for me, not to help her. And you were so sweet and cheerful, such a good friend. I started avoiding Jenny and didn't call her back, because I just couldn't tell her the truth that I wanted you for myself. It was easier not to talk to her. That night, with candles and wine, I decided that I would take you to bed. Later I'll worry about why I did it. But then when we kissed and you touched me and I was so excited. Damn it, Nick. I wanted you to make love to me. I wanted you to be my lover. I still want it. But I made that promise to Jenny, and I also knew that I wasn't being honest with you, and I suddenly felt like my head was going to explode. I just knew it wasn't right, even though I wanted you so much. And I just had to stop. We sat in silence. Angie was crying quietly, and I was clenching my fists so tightly that I was afraid that my nails would pierce my palms until they bled. I knew what Davis would say if he were there, and it almost made me laugh, hearing his voice in my head. Jesus Christ in a hot air balloon. We sat in silence for probably more than 5 minutes. Then I stood up and said, "What a story, Angela. Another chapter in the book about how women pulled Nick Perry, man. What should I call it? The same nightmare, only on a different day. This seems to fit quite well." I'm really sorry, Nick. Her head was down and I could barely hear her. Me too, Angie. I turned around and went home, taking my stupid folding chair with me. I don't know, buddy, Davis replied. I need a little more information. We sat in my backyard, each with a beer. Just answer the question, Davis. Is this my third nightmare, or just a continuation of nightmare number 2? I think it depends on the circumstances, Nick. Tell me this. Are you feeling hurt and angry about Jenny's new story? Because she found a way to mess with your head again? Or are you so upset because Angie deceived you? What if I say that it's both? I thought for a moment. I think it's all because of Angie. Believe it or not, Jenny's role isn't that bad, because that's what I expected from her. She wants what she wants, and how she gets it doesn't really matter to her. I have long ceased to highly value her ethical standards. I laughed. Then, Davis said, this is definitely your third nightmare, because the first 2 were Jenny's doing, and this one was Angie's. Glad we cleared everything up. Would you like another beer? Of course, he said. And after that, let's go eat. We had finished half the pizza and we're now sitting back in our chairs with satisfaction, watching the pretty waitress's ass move around the restaurant. So, how are things going with Angie now? Have you talked to her? Never. She's left me several messages over the past 2 weeks, all discreet, just how sorry she is. I just didn't want to call her back. Why not? I thought a little. I think it's because I don't know what to tell her. Before I call her, I feel like I should know how I feel, what I want to happen. And now, I don't know anything at all. I mean, she lied to me, right? She indulged Jenny. But on the other hand, when she was close to going through with it, she retreated. She stopped herself. This should be worth a few points. And when I finally got her to talk to me, she told me the truth, even the part that makes her look bad. And the thing is, I miss her. I keep thinking about how much fun it was hanging out with her. Not to mention how incredible she looked in that blue sweater the night we almost made it. I certainly wouldn't mind finishing what we started. But can I trust her? Is there any reason to believe that I can count on her more than my bitch wife? Davis looked at me and said, "It's time to go, boy. When you start talking in circles, I know it's time to take you home." 3 days later, Jenny came to see me. Just like that. Out of the blue, without warning. Was this nightmare number 4, or just Appendix A to nightmares number 1 or number 2? By this time, I had already lost count. It was about 8:30 p.m., and I was washing the dishes after dinner. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, she was there. If I hadn't been so startled, I might have closed the door in her face, but I just froze. "Hello, Nick," she said in a small voice, like a little girl. "Can I come in and talk to you?" I silently stepped back and let her into the living room. We sat opposite each other, saying nothing. My heart wasn't pounding. My palms weren't wet. This time I just felt cold and some kind of emptiness. It was like meeting a person from a painful but distant part of my past. And I realized that I was further along in the process of getting rid of Jenny than I thought I would be. "Would you like a drink or a cup of coffee?" "Some water would be great, thank you." I brought her a glass of water and another for myself. We sat for a while longer. I knew one thing. I wouldn't say a word. She came in with something on her mind. I was going to wait to see what the hell it would be this time. "Nick, I haven't seen you for a long time. Since the day I was here with you and Davis. I was waiting. I know you spent time with Angie because she told me about it from time to time when we talked." She looked at me, clearly hoping that I would prompt and help her, but I just watched her. But for some reason, Angie hasn't been answering my calls lately. I don't know what's bothering her, whether she's mad at me or what. Silence again. Her gaze became even more pleading. "Nick, are you dating her? Are you a couple or just hanging out together, as friends?" Her tone was a little pleading. "I don't think it's any of your business, Jenny. You and I are no longer together, and what happens in my public life is private." She looked offended but nodded. "Yes, I see that." Then she took a deep breath and rushed forward. "You know why I'm asking, don't you? I still love you, Nick, more than I ever thought I would. After my terrible mistake with Alec, I had a lot of time to think about everything I threw away. Baby, all I want is you again." I will do everything to make up for the pain I caused you. God, what an idiot I was. But now I know it, honestly. I wondered why my heart wasn't pounding, why I felt relaxed rather than tense. Jenny, I'm just not going to date you again. You say you thought about your mistake, but I don't realize how much you destroyed me. Impulsively, I made a decision. I woke up. Come with me, okay? I want to show you something. Puzzled, she followed me as I walked up the stairs. Soon we stood in front of the closed door of what used to be our bedroom. In the first 2 weeks after you left, I almost went crazy. I moved into the guest room, but kept coming back to our bedroom and doing things with it. Spill out your feelings. Then I got tired of it and just stopped. I haven't been in this room for a long time, but I think that when you see this, you will understand how your betrayal made me feel. I opened the door, turned on the light, and stood aside to let her in. I heard her gasp, "Oh God," and looked around the room that had been the bedroom all our married life. On one wall hung Jenny's sexiest red nightie. It was actually a copy I bought since she took the original with her when she moved. Right where her heart would have been if she had been inside, the steak knife went deep into her nightgown and into the wall. The candles that had been on the bed the night I found her with Alec were broken into pieces and scattered haphazardly on the floor. Wax marks marked where I had repeatedly thrown them into the walls. There were pieces of our wedding album lying everywhere. I tore it apart, page by page, then tore the pages and photographs into pieces and scattered them haphazardly. There were several deep cuts in the walls at about ankle level, where I hit hard with my boots. I watched as Jenny looked around the room, taking in the ugliness and destruction. As she turned to me with obvious shock on her face, I said, "I bet you didn't know I could get that angry, did you?" I didn't know either. They say that during times of stress, you learn something new about yourself. Well, I discovered how much hatred and rage I had inside me, ready to burst out with enough provocation. And it's your doing, Jenny. There was an expression of sadness on her face that I had never seen before. I felt that perhaps she was beginning to understand how much she had hurt me. In a quiet voice, she said, "Oh, Nick, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry." She slowly approached me, wanting to hug me, but I said, "No, Jenny, I don't think so." And without saying another word, I turned and walked down the stairs. Almost 10 minutes passed before she came down and sat with me in the living room. "It's really over, isn't it?" I nodded to her. "You killed everything, and returning to life together is simply impossible." She began to cry, looking at me, her shoulders shaking. After a couple of minutes, she stood up, still crying, and left the house. "I really want you here, Davis. Are you my friend or not?" He gave me an irritated look. "Do you really think that I would have endured your problems all these years if I had not been your friend?" "Deliver me," he said with a snort. "I just don't understand why I need to be around while you're talking to Angela." "For luck, maybe," I said. "Do you remember how Jenny came to our house? It was your idea to be here with me, and thank God it was so. I really needed you. So, call it a stupid superstition, kid. Just don't go, okay? At least stay here for the first few minutes." He sighed with deliberate resignation, but I knew he would stay. We watched another half of the inning, and then when the doorbell rang, I turned off the TV and went to answer it. "Hi, Angie." "Hi, Nick," she said shyly. She looked so beautiful that I wanted to grab her, but I didn't. She was wearing a white skirt and a sleeveless knit top with barely visible cleavage. Very attractive, but not at all provocative or slutty. And her hair was shiny and gorgeous. I knew she wasn't a beauty in the same class as Jenny, but I didn't care. She looked lovely. "Hi, Davis," she said, smiling at him as she entered the living room. He stood up and kissed her on the cheek. "Hello, Angie." I asked Davis to stay while we talked, at least for a while. "Nick, I don't care who's here to listen to my apologies. I'll do it anyway. I'm just really sorry." "Shh," I interrupted her. "I know you're sorry. You said it when we talked at your house. And you've said it in how many phone messages since then? I smiled at her. So let's talk about what happens after I'm sorry. First me, then you, okay? Angie nodded. Okay, number 1. Jenny and I are done. I don't even hate her as much as I used to, but I will never go back to her. Is it clear? Angie nodded again, smiling slightly. So, secondly, everything that you and I decide concerns only the two of us. All Jenny's promises are invalid. She's out of the game. Can you agree with this? Yes, Nick, she said meekly. Now let's move on to number 3. You really hurt me, Angie. After what Jenny did, the last thing I wanted was to fall in love with someone else who was going to deceive me, you know? Of course, Nick, and I'm so ashamed. Wait a minute. Did you say fall in love? She looked at me and a smile appeared on her face. Yes, I answered, smiling back at her. Do you have problems with this? No, I don't have a problem with that. I looked at Davis and winked at him. He looked at Angie and me for a moment longer, enjoying our smiles, then waved at me and headed for the door. I walked over to Angela and carefully lifted her to her feet. In that case, I think you owe me for a rather painfully interrupted evening. I kissed her, and she put her arms around my neck and hugged me tightly. Now you know how it's done, right? It is difficult to achieve justice with words alone. Kisses, tongues, clothes come off. She drags me onto the sofa. I'm not saying it was bad. In fact, I say it was great. It was amazing, especially the first time. I haven't been this excited since I was 16 and first touched Arlene Arnold's rather small breasts in the rec room. Well, actually, I was probably so excited too when I first had Jenny, but I'm sure I wasn't thinking about that at the moment. Anyway, Angie and I were naked on the couch within 2 minutes, and we made sex and love, kissed each other, whispered to each other, and there were tears on her cheeks, and it was like a real paradise. When we finished making love for the first time, and I'll be damned if it didn't feel like making love and not just sex, we lay together and smiled at each other. Then we got up, leaving our clothes on the floor, and I led her by the hand into the kitchen. We got out the sausage, the bread, the cheese, and the bottle of champagne that I had kept in the refrigerator for ages, long before Jenny left, and went upstairs to my real bedroom, the one in which I slept. And we went to bed, ate, drank, and laughed some more, enjoying the heady feeling that sharing a bottle of champagne can give. And then we did it a second time, and it was magical. We had long, slow, absolutely amazing sex. I vaguely remember doing this to Jenny in the early days of our relationship. Angie and I looked at each other, kissed. I put my head on her shoulder and kissed her neck. It was intimate and sweet, and much more like lovemaking than just sex. At these moments, everything except the joy of Angie's body was forgotten. I was happier than ever. And then we talked. It was backwards, you know, Angie, I told her. I was sitting on the bed with 2 pillows behind my back, and she was lying on top of me, resting her head on my chest, lazily playing with my hair. I mean, we did it, and now we have to talk about what it means. She suddenly pulled my chest hair hard and giggled when I yelped and pulled my hand away. Well, I don't think it will take long to talk about what it meant, at least to me. About? I said. Without looking up at me, she continued. For me, that meant that I was crazy about you, Nick. I started feeling it about the 3rd or 4th time we hung out together, and it got stronger and stronger. If it weren't for Jenny and my promise to her, if I'd only thought about myself, I would have gotten you into bed weeks ago. Now she sat up and looked me straight in the eyes. I don't want to tell you that I love you, but mostly because I don't want to scare you away. But I will tell you that you mean a lot to me, and I want you to know that. And she kissed me tenderly, looking seriously into my eyes. Okay, Angie, now it's my turn. I'm crazy about you too. But I'm also coming out of a pretty painful, destructive relationship, and I may still have some trust issues. She poked me in the ribs, and I spanked her ass. I know why you did it, and thank God that you stopped us that night and then were honest enough to explain everything to me. But it will take me time, maybe a lot of time, to feel like I can really trust you. It could have taken a long time after what Jenny did. But this nonsense about sleeping with me so Jenny can get me back. Listen, there's something you need to see. I got out of bed and pulled her out with me. Naked, holding hands, we walked down the corridor and stopped in front of the closed door of Jenny's and my old bedroom. There's some kind of shrine there that talks about how corrupt and evil I can be. You should not have any illusions about me. I opened the door and motioned for her to come in. Then I went back to bed and sat down, waiting for her to return. A few minutes later, Angie returned to the room with a serious face. Without saying a word, she climbed into bed and pressed herself tightly against me, squirming until we were pressed as tightly together as we could. She whispered into my shoulder, "I'm so sorry for what she did to you." Then she sat down. "And I'm so sorry for what I almost did to you. It just kills me that I could lose you that way." "Well, you didn't," I said hoarsely, and my throat suddenly tightened. "And if you play your cards right, you won't." I pulled her towards me and kissed her tenderly. At that moment, the damn phone rang. I muttered a curse and picked it up. "Hello? Hello, Mother. Look, I can't talk right now. I'll have to call you back." I smiled at Angie and hung up. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.